Yeah, so the first one's 341D, and it's altered surface, so we're doing like bookmaking and stuff, and then the other one is trends in contemporary photo.
Okay.
So,
Hey Danny, if you want to, there are lights if that's going to make it better for you. There's the light switch. See if it's not very pleasant light. No, all the way out by the door to the right. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Kind of ugly light.
I can see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just have some questions,
Sure.
further along the panel. Your little blurb of your panel. I was like, because we knew we were going to do an interview, and so when it was yours, I'm like writing everything down, and she's like, "Oh, I got to record it," and so we're like all like.
And in the end, I didn't say half of what
I know.
Just dumped
Yeah, and you're
lots
like,
of stuff because there wasn't time.
Yeah,
and
but
she kept giving me 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute.
and you're like, "No, stop, put
So
those down."
the history at the beginning wasn't supposed to be.
That none of that was supposed to be there.
Interesting.
No, the moderator doesn't usually present.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't say anything.
She spoke pretty fast, so it was like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
she
she's
was-
just gonna run through
she
real
was trying to
quick.
get through it
And I was like, oh man,
Still going.
still going. All right,
Yeah.
but it's okay. So, so what style of books have you either printed yourself or like assisted? Because you work with a publication company, or like
I have my own imprint, which is
Okay.
Space Heater Editions, and but I have printed some of my books with other publishers like Nexus Press in Atlanta and the Visual Studies Workshop Press in Rochester. But yeah, most of the books that I publish, and they're a mix. They're not all photo based. So my MFA is in photography, so they tend to be photo based, but they're not always.
right.
Yeah.
And so, but they're like artist books, or would you say
Yes.
like photo artist books?
Okay, so yeah, I didn't really talk about that, but that's one of the issues that I'm sort of concerned and interested in is the difference between say the monograph photo book, which is a traditional best hits, greatest hits, and the artist book, which is really about using the book as a medium. So in that case, it's often the photographs are shot for the book rather than for a gallery wall. So it's a very different intent. And usually there's more of a sort of narrative structure on that kind of book, and often unusual book format. So you can have it open up as gatefolds. Now, more and more photography books do that, but say 10 or 15 years ago, that was a very unusual thing. And sometimes what are called eccentric bindings, so it's not just a codex binding, it could, I don't know, have some kind of accordion fold, or, there's all kinds of possible things. I just got this back, that book there, that high tension book. That's a codex book. If you want to grab one of those, I can actually, it's not a new book, but I can show you what I'm talking about. Can you just grab one of those out of that box? So this is an example where instead of having just regular pages, you can actually see down through 5 or 6 layers. So, and most photographers think this is too much. Yeah, and in my artist book class, for instance, I have had lots of photographers, and I give them suggestions, and in the end, they usually go back to a standard format, which is fine. I it's okay. Different strokes for different folks, and they don't want to do that sort of thing, and I'm totally fine with that. But my interest is more using it in an expressive way. So.
Yeah. What would you say is the best technique that you've learned from printing? Like some little secret or something that you think is sets either binding or I think that book's really interesting, just the way it's cut, the different styles and stuff of it.
Yeah.
So what would you think is the most, I don't know, useful little technique that you have learned over the years?
I don't know if I can think of a single technique.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I think one of the things that is really, I'm just trying to think of something that might be useful. And what I would say is, if you, as photographers, are interested in making photo books, is not to put them up on a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a traditional thing with photographers. You put up sequences and you might have them together as 2-page spreads. But you really should do them by putting them in a book and see how they work.
Make book
that
dummies,
way.
yeah.
Book dummies are really important.
Yeah.
And I really try to have people do a number of iterations of book dummies and not put them on the wall. So people come and see my studio and there's no wall. Like most photographers always have a wall and you put up your photographs and you look at them. I don't have the room for that, but aside from that, I make a dummy and I do all my sequencing in the book so I can see, you know, how the rhythm is going, how the sequence is working, all that stuff. So.
So you talked about in the panel
Yeah.
at the SBE, you talked a little about film assembly and like stripping. Can you
Yeah,
just,
that's old
expand on
style
it?
offset production. It's gone. Don't do it anymore. I kind of loved it, but it's, you know, it's a skill. You have to learn it, and in many ways it's good it's gone because it's more accessible now. There's one problem in that all of that pre-press stuff is now done digitally to a plate. Offset itself is still the same, but the way you get to the plate is much more simplified. However, that machine that makes that digital plate is very expensive. So before you could do it yourself for not very much money. It's not so easy anymore. So that's one of the reasons why offset is not usually a do-it-yourself thing.
Right.
And it's also a lot of maintenance costs keeping up a press and everything else. So
It's like the color processor. Takes
yes,
a lot to keep it
yes,
up.
and it's gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned the production cost and distribution being like the hardest nut to crack. Like why?
Right. So you can raise the money somehow, maybe through Kickstarter, done a lot of times, and you find out through people that there's a really good publisher, say in Singapore or Korea or China, and you get your 1,000 books back. If you don't have a way of getting them out there, they're going to be sitting in your closet in your garage, and you know you can only sell so many by going to, you know, SPE and you know, some sort of art book fair. So it's really important to try to get a distributor, and although they take a large cut of the sales price, it's really worth it usually. But it's not easy to convince them to take it, because unless they're pretty sure they can sell 400 or 500 of them, it's going to actually cost them money to handle it. So it's a really difficult thing. Now there's now people are now so much more used to self-publishing. Do you know about Christina de Medel's Afronauts book? That came out I'd say about 4 years ago, and she self-published it in London, and she had the good luck of having somebody see it who was influential. It got entered in the Paris Photo and a number of other, and all of a sudden the buzz got out through, there are a number of Facebook and other websites that cover photo books, and it sold out in like 3 months. Gone, and was selling for like $2,000 a copy because collectors really wanted it. So it has finally been reprinted. But if you have that luck and you are very savvy about how you, for instance, a good example is actually a friend of Alejandro's, is Christina. Christina now lives in Mexico. She used to be based in London. And they've really kind of figured out how to get notoriety and publicity and sell it just by mailing it out. So it can be done.
Just getting to that point.
Yeah, and you have to be really good at it, and you have to be very kind of smart about how you mail, and that sounds silly, but mailing books internationally can be very expensive, so people don't want to pay $20 to mail a book. There's lots of factors to consider there, but it can be done.
Yeah. And like how, so you said you have to like convince the distributor to like pick it up basically?
The other way, that's if you have your own imprint. Now, the other sort of more common way is to get somebody like Radius or Twin Palms, or Aperture is a tough one because that you really have to have connections to get them to publish anything. But it also helps if you have a name as a photographer. So now I'm speaking now to the photo. I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys are interested in photo books.
Yeah.
So it's a little different for artist books. That's kind of another world. And a lot of people call photo books just, they say, oh, it's an artist photo book, but that's a little unclear what that is. There are some that are clearly artist books, but there are other ones that, I don't know.
So what would you offer to an artist looking to make a book with you at an artist-run print shop?
Say it again?
So, like, what would you offer an artist? What would you be offering to an artist looking to make a book with you? Like, how would you... I guess, what is your process if someone wants to come to you and make a book? Like, how would they... Like, what's that kind of process to go through from, you know, taking the pictures, the dummy book, and then...
Yeah. Well, I don't really do that.
Okay.
I think more and more, most publishers want something already prepackaged. You know, you've already done the work, and then you're trying to sell a finished book, and then they would end up arranging for the printing, and that is different than in older times, the old days, where you know, maybe the publisher would really take somebody under their wing and show them how to do it. I don't think that happens much anymore. Now, if you're a regular photographer, and I mean just sort of more traditional photographer who shows in galleries and stuff, they are probably going to hire a designer with a publisher. For instance, Claire's new book, you saw Claire's book from the gallery. That was, she won a prize, and it was with a publisher that publishes those books from from that competition. And they always hire a designer, and they work with a photographer to come up with a book that everyone's happy with. But you never have total freedom there because they're the ones that are putting up the money. And now Summa, she had that Aperture book. She had a designer too, but she had strong, I think, you know, most photographers will have strong feelings about what they want. And the more esoteric the materials, you know, Summa has that interesting kind of weird rubbery cover. I don't even know what that is, but it's kind of nice. It's very bizarre. I'm sure that cost a lot more money, and I know that Claire's book had some other interesting materials that the publisher said, no way, we're not paying for that. So there are always compromises, like with almost everything. And I don't know if this is answering your question.
No, yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, me personally, when I try to get a book, and for instance, I'm just finishing publishing a book that's a photo book. And in that case, the book was kind of finished, but then I took it over and kind of designed the book, because I know what will sell. And the person whose book it was, she didn't say if she really didn't like anything, but I think she likes it. But that's a little weird, because I feel like maybe I was putting too much of my own taste into it. But she is happy with it, and you know, since I'm putting up the money, which is not a huge amount of money, but and I've had enough experience that I think I know what will probably sell.
Yeah. So with your process with that book, what was the name of it?
Oh, this one, High Tension? Yeah, this was a little different.
Yeah, like, did you go through like extensive like paper? Like you looked at a ton of paper, and then like how'd you think of that form? Like, was it just like a thought before? Was it kind of an afterthought once you?
Well, this was sort of an unusual. Do you have time?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I have time.
Oh, okay.
I just don't want to.
You're good.
Because I could go on for quite a while. So, yeah, I had a book that I knew I wanted to do on stress. So I thought, okay, I went through a bunch of book formats. I wanted to try to get something that showed stress, or possibly this book is kind of worn now, but. And, you know, so, yeah, I did a lot of research into materials. This is a weird kind of, sort of, it's not naugahyde, but it's some kind of weird synthetic stuff. And then I went through many dummies, and I finally came up with this sort of explosion-like shape, and I ended up liking how you could do this, where you could see layers below, and then suddenly a picture would be revealed, but then the memory of it's there, but the main part isn't there, and then writing the text, because I always write my own text, and I usually have text, which is very unlike most photography books. Most photographers want as little text as possible. In fact, generally, with most monographs, a little bit of text, title, picture, turn the page, a little bit of text, picture. I find that really boring. So I really try to, change it, and because I usually have some sort of thematic thing that I've selected because it's something that I'm interested in. I start writing text, and this usually takes me about a year to get the text right. I'm not a natural writer, but so.
Especially with this book, did the text come first and then the book, or did you have the book in mind and then you wanted to add text, so then you thought of it?
They really kind of go concurrently, but so I'll have an idea. I'll start writing stuff with text in the notebook, but I'm already starting to think about what visuals could go with it. And then what I end up doing, and this is where dummies really help, I'll print out the text and I'll use this, there's non-adhesive glue stick. That non-adhesive is not right. What's the name of it? Repositionable glue stick. It's like the glue that's on Post-it notes. So what I can do is I can move it around and reposition both the photographs, and if I don't like it, it comes right off. Yeah, that's the only way to do it. Well, it's not totally clean because it does leave a little junk, bit, but it's a really good, nice way to design a book because you're not locked. You don't feel locked in. Like I don't have to go print another copy. I just move it. So that went through a lot of stages of that.
That kind of.
Well, this was the first book that I laid out totally digitally. Before that, you guys are too young to know how it was done before, but you had what are called mechanicals or paste ups, and you would position everything on that, and then you would shoot it in a large process camera and make lith film, and that would be, remember stripping you were mentioning, that would be put on the plate and it would be burned in a plate maker. When digital came along, it was great. It freed that, and so this was all done in a program. You're familiar with InDesign? Okay, so before InDesign, everybody used Quark Express. It's still around, but nobody uses it anymore. So this book was completely laid out digitally, and then we used to have an image setter, and the image setter is what outputs the lith film with halftone dots on it. It has a rip on it, like David uses downstairs, only he uses it for outputting inkjet. This outputs film. And then that is put on a plate and printed in offset press. So yeah, digital really changed things, and for the better. I really like the old process, and I used to work in an offset print shop in the darkroom, so I was in the darkroom all the time and processing lith film. It was very hard, but I liked it. That's gone, and it's good. But so anyway, there's another whole layer beyond that because we don't even do any of that stuff that way anymore. That's why I was telling you now it's direct to plate, and those direct to plate machines are very expensive, which is why I don't really usually do it anymore. But the other real big advantage of digital is now you can do print on demand. So when MagCloud and Lulu and Blurb all came out about probably 9 or 10 years ago, it was a big revolution. Although they're not cheap, that's the irony of it. The unit cost. For instance, I did, that book with the gold edge. I don't know if you saw it. Okay, so that cost $12 a copy to be printed in China. I can show you a small book that I did digitally, and it would be $40, and it doesn't look like it's nothing. So there's a big irony there. You'd think it would be cheaper, but it's actually not. However, I had to print 1,000 of those to get that unit price down to $12. So that's $12,000 outlay. How do you raise $12,000? And I have, look at all the boxes of them I still have, and that's not all of them. So it's hard to sell 1,000 books unless somehow there's a lot of PR and somebody on some book list gets excited about it, and then maybe it sells. It's being in the right place, having the right book, getting the right publicity. So there's some luck involved, but it's also being smart about how you publicize it. I'm not a good businessman.
It's all right. We're artists. You don't have to
Yeah,
be.
well,
That's why we pay someone to do that.
I know, but it's good to get that.
Yeah.
If you can get the training to know how to do that stuff. Alejandro's brilliant at it.
Yeah.
He makes a living off it. I couldn't. I sell about $9,000 or $10,000 worth of books every year, and I make a lot of stuff. So I would say that's not so good.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So when talking about the like funding for the books, the printing, the selling, paying whoever is helping you, how would you suggest that if someone wanted to print books like that, how would you suggest that they raise that money? I know you said like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter.
Yeah,
or something
GoFundMe
like
or
that.
Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I've seen lots and lots of photo books on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. GoFundMe is used more for hardship things. I don't, is there a GoFundMe for raising money for books?
I don't know. It was the first.
Yeah, Indiegogo is usually and Kickstarter are usually the two. There's a guy here who raised money for a book. Ken. I'm terrible. Ken. I don't know. Ken Rosenthal. He raised, I think, $20,000 to print a book, and he managed to do it. However, you have to give away goodies, right? So he gave away a print and a book. So there's a cost to pay, but it gets printed. It's worth it if you can do it. I feel funny about doing that. I feel like I'm kind of extorting money out of my friends. That's not a good attitude, but I just don't feel good about it.
Right.
You know, you could do it once.
Yeah.
But you can't keep doing that.
Right.
It's like, please give me some money.
Please help me print my book.
Exactly. And everyone wants to print their book,
Yeah.
you know? Anyway, I do give money. Recently there's a book, a reprint of a famous artist book, and they're trying to raise this huge amount of money. And I don't think they're going to make it, but maybe. They want $200,000.
Oh
Ridiculous.
man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Would you?
It's an exact facsimile of this historic book, so they're using special paper and
Yeah.
stuff. But
It's like close, to like not it at all. Do you know of any grants? Like, is that another route that
grants
you could
are
take?
hard. There are some competitions like the one Claire won, and then there's a Paris photo book, and I think there's another one. And then, you know, there's some publishers that will, you know, do you all know Christian Patterson's Red-Headed Peckerwood? That was a huge photo hit I'd say about 4 years ago. Anyway, he just happened to show it to this guy, Michael Mack, who runs Mack Publishing in London, and he just said, I'll do it. So,
You're like, okay.
no fundraisers
There you
there, but that's really unusual. There used to be many more grants and stuff, but I showed that slide briefly. It really depends on the state you're in and the sort of arts commission that you apply to. For instance, in New York, they're very attuned to artist books, and they make sure that money's unrestricted. Here in Arizona, I get so pissed off because they always says this money cannot be used for publishing or printing. It's like, what the hell? It's like my oil paints is my printing, you know? That's my medium. So anyway, it's exasperating.
Yeah.
But not all states are the same. Arizona's a little behind the times is all.
Well, hopefully they'll kick up soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Hurry up.
We need some more people.
Carry on.
Whoever's making the rules. And you know, the other thing is that it's changing. Photo books are becoming much bigger deal than they were. And now every photographer has to have a photo book, and I'm not talking about a monograph. I'm talking about something that's more creative. But so there used to be shows like the TMA Biennial. They never took any books, never. And they might now. I don't know. I haven't applied in 8 or 9 years, but and the one time I applied, I wasn't accepted. And I know why. They don't show books.
Yeah.
So maybe they do now.
We've done a lot of research in class, and that photo books are becoming like this new kind of trend, and it's becoming more and more like.
Here's a clue. Swan Galleries in New York City is one of the biggest photo auction places in New York City. It's always just been photography, so all the big names, the usual crowd. All of a sudden, this year, for the first time, it says auctioneer of photographs and photo books. Never been there before. So some of those photo books are starting to become valuable enough that they want to get in on the action. So
maybe
things are changing.
It'll be a new wave next year, like a whole photo book new wave.
Yeah, and there are lots of conferences like the theme for this one, and it's really kind of taken off in the last 5, 6, 7 years. There's always been a market for photo books, but it's really kind of exploded.
So I have one more question, unless you guys have any questions, but what would you say is like one thing that is necessary in like a photo book? Either like a concept or like the way that it's printed, or...
Okay, I would never say the way it's printed.
Okay.
A good example of that is Alejandro Cartagena's book on the rivers. It's printed by risograph on newsprint, right? In the old days, that would not have been acceptable. The photographer wants tritones on some kind of special paper, and I think you use the medium that's best for the subject. And I think the first thing you said there is really what it is. There has to be some kind of conceptual underpinning to it. It doesn't have to be necessarily a narrative, but I think that's helpful. But the narrative can be very opaque. It doesn't have to be like,
A to B.
Yes, exactly. Or some sort of, documentary text or a story necessarily, but some kind of conceptual narrative is really helpful in a book form, because a book form is linear. But a book does not have to be entered at the beginning. You can enter books different places, and somebody said that, and I was like going to go, no, you don't have to start at the beginning and end at the back. Books are personal and intimate, and you can enter where you want, and I often look at the back page first, and then I go in and go back and forth. So books are really a wonderful medium.
Do you guys have any questions? Want to add anything?
So I looked in, I saw the video you introduced your book, The Reaper.
Which one?
That one?
Oh, The Reaper.
Yeah, I really like the way you fold out the paper, put together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wonder like when you got the idea to make the book, then you're looking for the photo to put together, or which one?
Yeah. Well, that's actually a rather old form. It's called a Turkish map fold, and it's been around for 150 years. And so often what I do is when you learn binding and you learn different things, often I never start at a book structure and go, oh, what can I jam in here? But I all of a sudden I thought of a subject which was that whole thing was supposed to be about warfare and exploding bombs and stuff, and the page structure where the Reaper has that thing where the pages pop out seemed like that was the most appropriate book structure for the content. So I don't know if that's what you're asking exactly, but yeah. So see, most photographers really don't want books like that, though. I mean, there are people who are changing, but one of the things I really liked about Alejandro's carpoolers was that he was really, how he had he made that leap between just showing all those wonderful pictures of the people in the truck beds, but then he had those sheets where it was as if you were looking up and seeing the sky and the bridges passing. That wouldn't have been done probably by a regular photographer 10 or 15 years ago. So he's kind of breaking some of those rules, and it's good. It's becoming more expressive, and it's bringing more to the book than just the single photographs.
Yeah.
So,
Right, thank you very much.
yeah, well, thanks for.
Do you guys have a question?
Yeah.
No?
No?
I was gonna ask why I didn't know that the Arizona grants don't allow you to print. Is there a reason?
Yeah,
For that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, that's cute. I
The
don't
minute I
too much
read it,
sense.
yeah, someone said, "Hey, the Arizona Commission." This is when I got here 9 years ago, and they said, "The Arizona Commission is about to do the applications. You should apply." And I looked down and went, "Oh my God." They basically zero me out. I can't get these because that's what I would be asking for. I actually tried to do something sneaky, but they knew what I was doing.
Loophole.
I was trying to do, yeah, but they knew it. I mean, anyway. Yeah, I think grants and stuff, if you're giving them to artists, there should be no restrictions. The artist is going to want to spend it on their work, How often do you get money? So why put boundaries on that money, I think it's really wrong. And I know why. It's because okay, I'm not going to get into that. It's a political thing.
But
Yeah. And it would actually mean money for the economy if we got it. Now, if they said if you're going to print, you need to use an Arizona printer, I wouldn't like that, but I would actually understand that. That would be valid to me. But to say you can't use any of the money for printing or self-publishing, okay. Anyway.
But with that, what do they want you to spend it
I
on?
don't-
If you printing's the whole thing that you need money
exactly.
for. It's you just
told
don't
them,
get there.
That's my brushes and paints.
Yeah.
That's my film or whatever. That's how I get my work out. It's my medium. How can you, eliminate a whole? Anyway,
That's crazy.
maybe it'll get changed.
It probably will eventually. Hopefully within the
One
next
day.
little swift.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
So.
You good?
Yeah, very good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.